Who was the best basketball player on the worst NBA team of all time? Now that answer would be the high flyer, gritty defender himself, Gerald Henderson, on the 7-59 Charlotte Bobcats. Now he was more than just the best player on the worst NBA team of all time, and I'd like to take you back upon his journey throughout his career. Gerald Henderson is the son of former NBA player Gerald Henderson, who was a 13-year vet in the NBA and was a 3-time champion throughout his career with the Celtics and the Pistons. A lot of winning, which apparently is not a heritable trait. His dad pushed him his whole life and taught him how to work, taught him the game specifically, and also showed him how toughness firsthand, playing even through things like a broken jaw. Gerald Henderson would attend high school at Episcopal Academy in Marion, Pennsylvania. In Men's Recruiting Services Consensus Index rankings in 2006 had him as the 10th ranked recruit. And funny enough, he wasn't even the highest recruit at his own high school team, and that was in fact Wayne Ellington at number 8, who also went on to play in the NBA. However, Gerald was a 2-time Gatorade State Player of the Year, and he also played golf in high school along with track, specifically the high jump, winning multiple awards. And I feel like this was definitely shown as he became a McDonald's All-American and even won the slam dunk contest, truly showing off his verticality. Gerald Henderson would end up deciding to go to Duke like most top recruits do. Now his freshman year didn't fully go to plan as he only started 10 times and was playing roughly 19.3 minutes a game a night with averages of 6.8 points with a first round exit to VCU that year. The memory most will remember from this season is Henderson joining the long line of Duke hated players like Leitner, Reddick, Allen for his incident with Tyler Hansbrough. Now North Carolina held a 12-point lead with 17.5 seconds remaining in the game when Tar Heels star Tyler Hansbrough missed a free throw and then managed to come up with the rebound, and as he tried to lay it in, Henderson came flying in and delivered a hard elbow to Henderson's face, kind of growing the legacy of Psycho T. Now this caused him to get ejected and suspended a game, unfortunately. Next season would go better for Gerald Henderson as he moved into the starting lineup as a sophomore, and he averaged 12.7 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, and 1.6 assists on a 2 seed that would go home round 2, getting knocked out early to West Virginia and led by future NBA player Joe Alexander. During his junior year, Henderson led the team in scoring with 16.5 points per game on a Duke team that would end up having 6 future NBA players play. Now he would make first team All-ACC and he would win the ACC tournament championship with Duke. Now this earned Duke a 2 seed in the tournament again, and in the NCAA tournament, things wouldn't really go great all the way. They would go down in the Sweet 16 to Villanova-led team by Scotty Reynolds and Dante Cunningham. After a successful season his junior year, Henderson would decide to forego his senior season and enter the 2009 NBA draft, where he would end up being selected in the lottery at the 12th overall pick to the Charlotte Bobcats. His first year in the league, Henderson would play in 43 of the games, getting only 8.3 minutes a night, averaging 2.6 points and 1.3 rebounds for a Bobcats team that would go 44-38, ending up with the 7th seed in the East. They were, however, swept in the first round by the Orlando Magic and Dwight Howard, and Gerald actually didn't end up playing at all this first playoffs. His second year in the league, things began to change when the Bobcats decided to part ways with Larry Brown as the coach and replaced him with Paul Silas. Now, the team was clearly taking a new rebuilding approach, and Silas would end up playing him more. In return, his numbers shot up, playing 68 games, starting 30 of them, and averaging 24.4 minutes a night while scoring 9.6 points a game. He did this on a Charlotte team that went 34-48, missing the playoffs. Now his breakout year would be the following year, but team success would not follow along. The Bobcats would finish with the worst record in NBA history next season, going 7-59 in the lockout-shortened season. Henderson, however, would prove to be an efficient scorer, and he was one of the lone bright spots on the team this year. Henderson saw career numbers in minutes per game at 33.1, field goal percentage at 45.9, rebounds per game at 4.1, assists per game at 2.3, and he led the team in points per game at 15.1. He would prove to be the main offensive weapon for the Bobcats, particularly late in the season, while showcasing his unbelievable athleticism. He became one of the very few players then owner Michael Jordan did not want to part ways with due to his tenacity and play style. The following season, Henderson would average 15.5 points a night on a slightly less playing time and shot attempts due to the emergence of Kemba Walker. However, on March 12, 2013, Henderson had a career high in points, scored in a win over the Boston Celtics in which he scored 35 points, and then he would tie that scoring record of 35 17 days later against the New York Knicks. Now the future seemed a little brighter for Kemba and Henderson leading the way this season as they would pick up 21 wins. The Charlotte Bobcats in the offseason would commit to Henderson, offering him a 3-year, $18 million contract, which he accepted. Now, that wasn't the only big move Charlotte would make this summer. They would actually bring in Al Jefferson, a center, who would actually help the Bobcats do the unthinkable: win basketball games. Henderson would end up being the perfect third option behind Al Jefferson and Kemba Walker that season, averaging 14 points a night. Now, Charlotte would finish the season with a 43-39 record, ending up with the 8th seed, doing what many thought to be impossible for the Bobcat franchise only a couple years ago. Despite making the playoffs, they would bow out in the first round to the Miami Heat Big Three in a sweep. With Henderson, like most of the Charlotte players, averages dropping this series to 9.8 points, struggling. This would actually end up being the final year of the team's name being the Charlotte Bobcats, with the team reverting back to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, Henderson's numbers this next year, like most players in the roster who returned, would dip. He still put up 12.1 points a night, playing the most games on the team at 80, but the team was faltering this year, missing the playoffs with a 33-49 record. Because of this, Charlotte decided it was time to part ways with Henderson after all this time, and made a perceived win-now move. Henderson was traded along with Noah Vonleh to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for Nicholas Batum, giving Kemba Walker more touches at Charlotte. Henderson in Portland would have to adapt to a different role as an impact player off the bench for Portland. He would actually end up backing up Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, coming off the bench in all 72 games he played, while averaging totals of 8.7 points a night on 19.9 minutes. This would be on a Trailblazers team that made the playoffs as a 5th seed this season. Now, they would win their first round matchup against the injury-riddled Clippers before going down in round 2 in swift fashion to the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. Henderson did play an important role on this playoff run as a consistent vet with leadership, providing 6.9 points off the bench. He would be quoted at the end of the season saying it's the most fun year he thinks he's ever had as a pro, and I think this is in large part from him finally being part of a winning team. In the offseason, Gerald Henderson was a free agent, and the Philadelphia 76ers instantly offered him a 2-year, $18 million contract, which he would sign. They wanted to bring in a veteran presence that he had to their young core, and all the positive words about his time in Portland as a teammate convinced Philly. Henderson was officially now trusting the process. Henderson would end up playing for a 76ers team that showed promise when healthy, but were oft injured this season, and particularly Joel Embiid only playing in 31 games. Plus, there was a logjam with bigs when everyone was healthy with Noel, Okafor, and Embiid. This team would end up finishing 28-54 near the bottom of the league. Gerald Henderson would end up playing in 72 games and starting 42 of them this season, averaging 9.2 points a game. But little did he know, or the 76ers at this time, this would be his last season in the league at the age of 29. Henderson at this point in time had played several seasons now with arthritis. In the offseason, it was shown that his hip had deteriorated so much it was bone on bone. He had surgery called hip resurfacing, in which a surgeon places a metal cap on the femoral head and replaces the damaged bone with a metal shell, eliminating the bone-on-bone arthritic friction. This would end up being his 3rd surgery on his hip. Now, this would cause him to miss the full 17-18 season with the Sixers, and it was his last year under contract. Now, during the 2018 offseason, Henderson attempted to make a comeback to the NBA. He worked out for several teams in September 2018, but tore his Achilles tendon during a pickup game in Golden State. Gerald Henderson would decide to hang them up after this, realizing his body was just not the same as it used to be. Nowadays, Henderson can be found back in Charlotte while owning and leading a successful real estate company called Henderson Ventures. Now, his career did not exactly go to plan, playing on struggling teams and injuries shortening his career. But Gerald Henderson will always be remembered by fans for electric highlights going alongside with stifling defense from his elite athleticism, while consistently putting in the work night in and night out. Thanks for watching this video about Gerald Henderson's career. If you have any random player you want to see a video on, please comment them down below and I might just do it. Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.